Hey guys, welcome back to another impressions video on a game that came out last year, and surprisingly, I fell off on playing this game for over a year, and finally I got my chance to play it and beat the game. And we're talking about none other than Resident Evil 2, the remake for the PlayStation 4. As you guys, some of you guys may know, I'm a huge fan of the Resident Evil series. I have a discussion on the series. I'll leave a link below so you guys can enjoy my kind of like my ranking of these games. And if you guys watch that video, you'll know that Resident Evil 2 is actually one of my favorites in the series overall. I'm talking about the original one, of course, you know, the one that came out in 1998. And that's a game that I played back in the day and really enjoyed it. Played it on the PS1, played it on the Nintendo 64 a million times, and here we are in 2019. Capcom gave us the gift of a beautiful remake. It's a fantastic game. You know, no surprises here. But I did had a little bit of a flawed experience, and I'll delve into that in a second here. But overall, because this is a fantastic game, well worth of those some awards. I think some publications chose this as the game of 2019. I know Reset Era chose this as the 2019 game, so I'm pretty happy for that because I do think like that Capcom deserves the praise. The new engine, the RE engine that they've been using since Resident Evil 7, I think. It's fantastic for Resident Evil 2. It's the same engine they're going to be using for Resident Evil 3, and I'm excited to see what other uses they have for this wonderful game engine for the one that they use for Resident Evil 2. So Resident Evil 2 follows the pretty much the steps of the original game, but before I delve into my impressions, I'll just go ahead and say what the biggest flaw of the game was for me, and it's a very personal point. I got a lot of like motion sickness playing this game, or nausea, however you want to call it. It was incredible. I don't know why. I did notice Resident Evil 7 did that to me. That's a game that I never beat, and a part of it is that reason. The game just made me feel very dizzy for some strange reason. And Resident Evil 2 is the same way. Finally, I purchased this game on Black Friday last year. I was very excited to finally play the game, this early this year. And when I started playing the game, I couldn't play it more than 20 minutes before I had to stop. Thankfully, it seems like it's a common issue for a lot of people that have played this game. But thankfully, again, because it's a occurrence that happened to a lot of people, I was able to find some help online. If you tweak some of the display settings, like the field of view, the FOV setting, if you set that to the max, that helped considerably. So I'm very happy that Capcom decided to provide very, I guess, customizable display options. And I remember what else I did. There were a list of things that I found on Reddit of people that were getting dizzy playing the game, and I followed those instructions. Setting the field of view to the max. That was the main one. And then there were a couple of things that I had to like check or uncheck in the options or the settings of the game, and that helped considerably. Not fully, unfortunately. It's not the type of game where I can sit down and play hours upon hours, even though sometimes I wanted to. It's the type of game where I can only play in short bursts, and that's an unfortunate con that I have for the game. Again, it's very personal because some of you guys may have not experienced this, but it was what happened to me, and it's still happening. But I only beat the game once, and I know I typically, for something like this, for a series that I really love and enjoy, I would have beaten the game 4 times. Leon A, Leon B, Claire A, Claire B. But I just decided to do an impressions video as soon as I beat the game. I started the campaign with Leon, and right now I'm doing my Claire A, I guess, if you will, campaign. I'm halfway through that, but I figured I was so excited to talk about this game that I wanted to get it out of my way and share it with you guys. Now, for those of you, I'm sure you guys have played this game, but if you haven't, this is a good chance to play it on brand new graphics and a brand new um, control or gameplay type. The previous remakes that Capcom did, for the first Resident Evil, that one maintained the original gameplay style with fixed camera angles and pre-rendered backgrounds. That was a fantastic remake. It's one of my favorite games of all time. We're talking about the GameCube, the 2002 release, and then obviously that got the HD remastered treatment, and that came out for the PlayStation 4, PlayStation 3, and so forth a few years ago. But this one took the remake. Um, I guess, a name to a whole new level. Now you get to play this game on a third-person view, behind-the-back camera angle, and it's a refreshing take on the game. I'm not gonna lie, I was disappointed. I was one of the few that was hoping that Capcom would remake the game using the pre-rendered backgrounds and the fixed camera angles, just to keep that um, keep the roots of the game alive. Hopefully, in the future, they decide to do that because I would love to see a remake um, of the original one with the original gameplay type. But nevertheless, this is a fantastic game. And what I really appreciate Capcom doing is that they kind of followed the Resident Evil Revelations path in the sense that Resident Evil 4, 5, and 6 were very action based. So one of my concerns was that this will become like an arcade type of game, where you just shoot tons of zombies at the same time and spend a lot of ammo and whatnot, kind of like with Resident Evil 4 and 5 specifically. But they went the Revelations route, which is, even though the game is third person view behind your back, the game does have a very survival horror vibe to it. You're always running low on ammo. Enemies are hard to take down, even though even like one zombie can create can create a lot of problems. And mind you, I have to admit, I did play this game on assisted mode because of the dizziness. I was trying to get the game done. Uh, I don't want to say I was rushing through the game, but I was just taking it easy. I was trying to I was trying to just go slowly through the game, take my time, but at the same time, not get too crazy. And it did take me, I want to say, like 10 hours, which is a long time for a first playthrough, especially on assisted mode. But now my second playthrough with Claire, I'm doing it on standard, normal difficulty, and the goal would be maybe for my second run or my B scenarios, maybe update to hardcore. I haven't decided yet. The game is uh, pretty difficult actually. Even on assisted, I was I was shooting at zombies and they would just not go down. Sometimes you get lucky with the random number generation and you get headshots that make the zombie heads explode so they don't get up again. But sometimes even though you're unloading on their heads, they keep getting up, or you miss the shots, and ammo is very limited. Even on assisted mode, especially early in the game, I was um, I was sweating sometimes, when my ammo was coming down. But even for veterans of the series, I think you guys will find a pretty fair challenge. Now, as far as the story, for those of you that haven't played this game yet, it just follows the two main protagonists of the game. One of them is Leon S. Kennedy. He's a rookie cop, and the other one is Claire Redfield, a college student. She's the younger sister of Chris Redfield, which is one of the main characters on the first Resident Evil game. So you get to choose, who do you want to play. Both playthroughs are fairly similar. There are areas where Claire has some exclusive sections, and then Leon has some exclusive parts in the game. So it definitely warrants to play the game not only a second time, but at the very least a third time. Because when you play the second run, which is unlocked after you beat the game on the first run, that actually has the true ending, and that's similar to the original game where you had to beat that B scenario for either Leon or Claire in order to get the true ending. So they kept that in there, and it's the true way of completing the game, and I'll definitely be doing that at one point. I just wanted to share my impressions early, but I did start with Leon, and there are some changes. Going back to the story before I get distracted with the gameplay, just again, you assume the role of either Leon or Claire. Not the most secure type of characters. You know, Leon being a rookie cop, Claire being a college student. That adds, I think, to the fear factor in the game that you're playing with these characters that are somewhat unexperienced in terms of surviving something, like a zombie apocalypse, more than anything. So I think that adds a little bit to the tension factor, I guess the lack of experience of your main characters. And then the story is basically you arrive to Raccoon City. Claire, she's trying to find her brother Chris Redfield. Leon, he just kind of runs into this mess, and the objective is obviously to escape. But as you play the game, certain things happen, and the game kind of turns into finding out what happened. How the Umbrella Corporation was involved in this, and you get more involved, and you get other characters. In the game, for Leon, as we all know, Ada Wong, and Claire has her own side character, if you will, or different character portion that you assume later in the game. I guess the graphics again, the new RE engine is fantastic. I think it's paving the way for Capcom for the PlayStation 5 or the next gen. I think they're pretty much set. I'm pretty much looking forward to Resident Evil 3. I know it's going to look great. So the graphics are fantastic. The facial expression are just fantastic. The character models are incredibly detailed and realistic. That's, in my opinion, one of the true, I guess, high points of this RE engine. I absolutely love the new model for Leon. Same for Claire. Same for other characters. Annette. Annette Birking. They all look great. And especially the two main characters, Leon and Claire, they look fantastic. I was a little bit scared, when they said, they're going to use new models that were going to deviate from the previous kind of like Leon model. He was more, he was kind of like already defined, but now he looks different, but he looks amazing in my opinion. And so does Claire, and they're going to do the same treatment with Jill Valentine in Resident Evil 3. Julia Vaughn, I think that was the actress name. She used to be the Jill character ever since the remake for the GameCube. They're finally going to get away from her, but the new Jill is also looking fantastic for RE3, so definitely looking forward to that. But yeah, as far as graphics, the zombies, they look fantastic. The amount of detail, the hair, the physics, when you're shooting the zombies, the bits and pieces, that fly from their, whether it's brains or legs or limbs, the blood, everything looks scary. The attention to detail, to the walls, to the floor, to the items that are scattered through the floors. It really gives you a very creepy atmosphere, and it really builds up the tension in the different parts of the game. Obviously, the police department is kind of like the main hub of the game, but there are other areas that you explore as you advance through the game. So that's definitely something that the game does fantastic. The graphics. Now, as far as the gameplay, I already kind of went over that. It's a third person behind your back with a lot of tension, very similar to Resident Evil Revelations, which is a good thing. You're going to be running low on ammo in different parts of the game. You're going to have to be combining gunpowders to create more ammo. You're going to have to be swifting through your inventory to use different types of weapons. Knives now are disposable, if you will, like they get damaged after certain uses, you have to dispose the knives and get new ones. So that adds to the tension. There is an unlockable infinite knife that I have not unlocked yet, but so far I'm just using the regular knives that run they run bad after a certain amount of uses. And it's pretty easy to do that because sometimes when you're trying to run away from zombies, your knives, they act as a secondary weapon that you can stick on their heads to avoid being bitten by the zombies. Or you can use grenades as well. But the idea here is to try to use the least amount of ammo, and if you can run past certain enemies, then do it by all means, because ammo, it's somewhat of a luxury in this game, and I cannot imagine playing this on hardcore. I may or may not do it for my second run, but it's definitely a challenge that's out there. And speaking of challenges, one of the new things in this game, I talked about zombies being very resistant to damage. The lickers, they're back. Obviously, they're a classic enemy that they made their debut in Resident Evil 2. They have their own techniques. They're blind, so if you're not making any noises, they can't really see you. So the knife actually becomes a very effective weapon to use against the lickers. But of course, here the one enemy that everyone talks about is Mr. X, which in the original game he only appeared in scenario B. But surprisingly, Capcom put him on all the scenarios in this game. So you're going to run into Mr. X no matter what scenario you're playing. And I know he's kind of like one of the highlights of this game, but for me, I have to admit, guys, to me, he's a little bit of a nuisance in a literal way. Obviously, Capcom meant for him to be a nuisance, but to me, he's almost detrimental to the gameplay of the game. And the reason I'm saying this is because Capcom, they made him indestructible. So once you trigger Mr. X, he's going to be following you pretty much throughout the entire portion of the RPD section, the Raccoon Police Department section of the game. And it's I can understand why they did it. It's a nerve-wracking. They're trying to build up the tension, and they succeeded at that. I have to hand it to them. It's very stressful having him follow you throughout the police department. If he doesn't go down, you can spend as much ammo as you want. He will go down for a few seconds, giving you time to escape from him, but you cannot kill him until towards the end of the game. Obviously, when he's kind of like a boss battle. But that kind of like at the beginning, it was kind of like fun or very scary, if you will. But then he becomes an annoyance, and even after you get good at avoiding his attack or running past him, the way the game works, and I have a friend that kind of explained to me the AI events that happen. Like if you run on the police station, the game like spawn Mixer X very close to you, which is, in my opinion, it's unfair because you could be dodging him and running away from him, and you think you're on the clear for a while, but the game will actually spawn him on a nearby door. So I think the key, if you don't want to run to him a lot, is to actually just walk. So my friend, he told me that's what he does, but I don't have that patience, and I run into him a million times, and he's a scary dude, but again, he just becomes an annoyance, in my opinion. He's actually one of the negative things of the game, if you will. I don't want to use the word negative, but at first it's a novel thing, having him follow you through the police station. But after a while, he just becomes a nuisance. And I prefer the Mr. X from the original game, which is a scripted character. He appears only at very specific points through your second playthrough. And then once you deal damage to him, he goes down, but he stays there. I prefer that methodology. So I'm not really sure how I'm going to cope with Nemesis on Resident Evil 3, because supposedly he's going to be chasing you throughout the whole game, pretty much. And similarly to Mr. X, I don't think he goes down at all. So that'll be a very stressful and annoying thing to deal with Resident Evil 3, but I understand where Capcom is coming from. They're trying to create this super high tension atmosphere, and believe me, they have succeeded. Both or using Mr. X, with the zombies being very, bullet spongy, if you will, with the low ammo situations. And this game also introduced, with the new graphics, certain areas of the police department, for example, are very dark, and all you have is a flashlight. And those areas are super scary, especially when you're playing the game. Even if you're a veteran, because when you're playing this for the first time, you don't really know what you're going to run into. The liquor encounters are not where they used to be, for example. Mr. X obviously spawns in instances where you don't know if he's going to do it. And that's the beauty of this remake, that even for seasoned and veterans of the series like myself, I beat Resident Evil 2, the original one, a billion times. Even myself, I was finding myself being surprised. At the same time, a lot of nostalgia kicked in. The first time you walk into the police station and you see this new environment come to life on a 3D way. I was just sometimes I would just slowly walk and try to enjoy the new setting of the game, the new graphics. It was a very good moment for me because Resident Evil 2, the original one, is one of my favorite games. So it was a very very fun experience for me to come back to Raccoon City, the streets, the police department, the sewers, all the areas in the game. It was fun exploring. Um, so overall, I think soundtrack. Let me just talk about the sound because this game truly does deserve to be mentioned. The voice acting is fantastic. Something that the original Resident Evil games from back in the day, they never had the best voice acting, but this game just takes it to a whole new level. Combined with the actual graphics, the character models, they look so realistic. The voice acting is fantastic. I think this game, both the soundtrack, from the things like Mr. X following you, he has kind of like his own theme song, if you will. Uh, but there are some disappointments, like the save rooms don't have the kind of like the what do you call it? Like the theme that used to be part of Resident Evil 2. I think it'll be back for Resident Evil 3, but Resident Evil 2 doesn't have some of the soundtracks that were part of the original game, unfortunately. But yeah, overall, I think from a graphics point of view, from a gameplay point of view, sound, this is one of the most staple games of 2019. I'm not surprised that this game won so many awards. I'm not surprised at the excellent reviews this game has received. And again, for a veterans of the series that have not played this game yet, I'm probably one of the last ones that have played this game very late. But I was surprised. Being a veteran, you kind of know where everything is, but this game just it's a it's the same game, but at the same time it's not. If that makes any sense. And that was a very pleasant surprise on my end. From the get go, you start on the gas station area, kind of like your tutorial part of the game. That was not part of the original game. In the original game, you go to Kendo's gun shop. At the beginning, you don't. So I was actually pissed off. I was like, man, that was a staple part of the original Resident Evil 2 game, but you actually wound up going to Kendo's gun shop later in the game, like kind of like midway through the game. So I like how they kind of like switch things or move things around, move the order of certain things around. And I'm definitely looking forward on my second playthrough to see how what's new in that second playthrough, and of course, just being able to enjoy the game more. Because once you beat the game, again, it took me like 10 hours on my first try. And now that I'm playing with Claire on standard difficulty, even though I upped the difficulty, I am playing the second playthrough considerably faster. Like I'm an hour, I want to say I'm like maybe 2 hours in the game, and I'm already like halfway through the game with Claire. So my second playthrough may take me like 5 hours. Um, uh, so I'm gonna cut my playtime in half. So there's a lot of things that you learn on your first playthrough that you'll be able to apply on your second playthrough. You know, how to deal with zombies, what's the best deal to run away from enemies, where enemies come into play, how to deal with Mr. X. Those are things that you learn on your first playthrough, you learn on your second playthrough, and the more you play the game, the better you get. And that's kind of like another good thing that Capcom did as far as the trophies, the unlockables. This is a game that warrants a lot of playthroughs. I used to be a lot involved in getting platinum trophies. I'm not sure I'm going to devote my time because this is the type of game where you're going to have to beat the game several times. Very likely more than 4 times, maybe 5 to 6 times. I don't think it's a hard platinum trophy, but it'll be time consuming just playing the game over and over again. But right now, I do have the motivation, I have to say. But after beating the game like 4 times, I don't know if I'm going to have that motivation. And I am trying to clear my backlog, you know, from other games, and also not only playing other games, but you know, Resident Evil 3 is about to come out. I'm pretty sure I'm not gonna get it on day one, but my point stands. You know, by the time I beat this game a couple of times, I'm sure I'll just move on to something else and not get the platinum trophy. I may do it in the future, but who knows? I'm strapped for time, and I have a huge backlog. So you know, I'll see what I'll decide what to do later on, I'm sure. But overall, Resident Evil 2 definitely one of the best games of 2019. For veterans of the series, I don't think you can really fault this game for much. Again, my cons are a little bit that Mr. X, it's on the annoying side. Then I had that personal issue with the motion sickness, which again, that's something very personal to me. But I do have to, I did want to mention that on the video because it did affect my enjoyment of the game, unfortunately, you know, because I had to play for very limited amounts of time. I do have to say, now that I'm playing with Claire and I fixed those display settings, I am able to play the game on much longer, you know, playthroughs, if you will. So I've been getting used to the speed of the camera and all that. So I'm doing much better. But it's just something to keep in mind. If you guys are suffering through the same things, make sure you Google what to do, and that'll help a lot. So that's it for now. Hopefully you guys enjoyed my impressions on Resident Evil 2. Thank you for watching, and I will see you all later.